This is an interview with Dell Junior Edmundson, who served with the U.S. Army Air Force during World War II. This interview is being conducted at Maplewood Middle School on the following date, March 15, 2004. The interviewer is Brittany Schlent and Amanda Geisbergs. What career did you have before you entered in the war?
I was a milk tester for a dairy association in Jake County, Indiana.
What war did you serve in?
World War II. I was drafted, one of the early 18-year-olds in 1943.
All right. Where did you live at the time you got drafted?
I lived in Yorktown, Indiana, although I traveled all over the county.
What loved ones did you leave behind?
My mom and dad and assorted number of sisters and brothers. I'm one of 10 kids, and there's still 7 of us living yet.
How did you feel when you left them?
Well, I felt that it was my duty to serve, but it was different going away from people that you know.
Where were you stationed at?
I was inducted in Canterbury, Indiana, Camp Canterbury. Atterbury. And then I was assigned, I didn't know I was in the Air Force until we got halfway to Florida. I served basic training in Clearwater and St. Petersburg, Florida. I went to Denver to a armament school, to Las Vegas Air Force Base for gunnery school. Went to Pocatello, Idaho for joining up with a crew that I was going to serve with. And we trained there during the winter of '43. And we flew to Lincoln, Nebraska for a setting up exercise, and flew there from there to overseas. We took a scenic route through West Palm Beach, Florida, Trinidad, Belém, British Guiana, to Valparaiso, Brazil, across to Africa, and ended up in Tunis in North Africa. Then we flew exercise there, and we ended up in Bari, Italy, with the 15th Air Force. We started flying missions middle of April of '44. I flew 16 missions over mostly in Italy, southern France, Austria, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, and the last mission was Ploesti oil fields in Romania. We lost an engine before we got to the target, but we did follow the formation into the oil fields. And as we come off of the target, we were falling behind, and we were attacked by 9 German fighter planes. Eventually we lost another engine and we tried to make our way back, but we couldn't maintain altitude, so we had to bail out over Yugoslavia. By the way, we shot down 5 of the planes that attacked us. We bailed out over a little town. Most of the crew bailed out before we got to this little town. 2 were landed in the little town. 1 was captured and 1 was killed in his chute. The tail gunner and myself were the last ones out of the plane, and we landed on the other side of this little town. We went one way, the rest of the crew went the other way. We were picked up and taken care of by a Chitnik guerrilla outfit that was opposing the Germans in southern Yugoslavia. We were there we were shot down on June 6th, D-Day, and we got out of there August the 14th, a little over 2 months. They flew in and picked us up. And we flew back to our outfit in Italy. Should I continue, or do you have some more questions?
How did you stay in touch with your family?
We mostly by mail. Overseas, they had a short thing that they give us that we could write out a one-page letter, and they put it on film to condense it. And of course, this was all checked over by someone, see that we didn't give any unauthorized details. Other than that, we contacted by letter.
What branch of service did you serve in?
I was in Army Air Force, served with 15th Air Force in Italy. The 779th Squadron, 464th Bomb Group. And when I come back to the States, then I served another year at various places in the United States.
What was it like arriving at the camp?
The original camp, there was thousands and thousands of young men coming, and of course some of the ones that had been around for a while would say, "You'll be sorry," which was kind of a humor outfit anyway. But it was something that you didn't know where you were going or what you were going to do, so it was kind of confusing.
What was the food like there?
Throughout the service, there was a lot of places that the food was good, and a lot of places that it wasn't so good. Overseas, we had a lot of sea rations, which were fixed for us. We were fortunate that we were behind the line, so we had our own mess tent, and we got served hot food. And on our flights, we were given a K ration, which was just a small meal that we could eat on the plane.
Did you receive any special training?
I went to an armament school studying guns and turrets and armament that goes on the airplane. We went to Nettles Air Force Base at Las Vegas for a gunnery school. We studied ground-to-ground firing, and then the last 2 weeks we were firing from planes at a target towed by some other plane. Other than that, no special training.
Okay. What were the conditions like?
Well, conditions in the States were great. You know, on Army bases, they took care of you pretty good. Overseas, it was more primitive. The enlisted men had their tent, and the officers had a different area, and they had their tents. Our crew consisted of 6 enlisted men and 4 officers. The officers were the pilot and co-pilot and bombardier and the navigator. The enlisted men were 2 engineers, radio operator, and the other 3 were gunners. And my job was the ball turret gun underneath the plane.
What battles were you engaged in?
Now, we flew 16 missions over mostly southern Europe. A couple, 3 in northern Italy, 1 in southern France, 1 in Austria, and 1 in Czechoslovakia, and a couple in Yugoslavia, and the last one is in Romania.
How long were you overseas for?
I was only overseas from February to September of 1944.
What were your fears or concerns, if you had any?
Well, the fears were that you were flying over targets that were trying to shoot you down, and there was a lot of them that were shot down. So the fears were there. Of course, people didn't want to show it, but it was there.
Did you make any long-lasting friendships?
Not really. We went to several different places, and I was with the same crew for like 6 months. But as far as soon as we come back to state, everybody was split up, and I've had no contact with any of those people.
Do you have any stories about entertaining the military or entering the military?
No. Funny stories, you mean?
Yeah.
We had one fellow on our crew that he had smelly feet. And we made him take his shoes and socks and throw them outside the tent every night. Of course, he'd done a lot of bathing, his feet didn't make any difference. So, other stories I can't remember.
Okay. How did you feel after the war?
I was extremely glad to get out of the service. A lot of the service time was hurry up and wait. And that's hard on anybody. And of course, once we had to come back to the States, we're just serving time. I got married 8 months before I got out of the service, and within a couple of months after I got out of the service, we had a child. So I was happy to get out, join with my wife, and get on with my life. To get on with your life, you had to start working right away. So
What career did you have after?
I worked for a year and a half for Burlington Railroad, and then I applied and started working for 3M, and I worked 35 years for 3M and retired 22 years ago.
What was it like when you came home?
Well, like I say, I was glad to get out, and I had an opportunity to visit my folks, but my wife was from Minnesota, so I came here, and I've been here ever since.
What has being in the war meant to you?
Well, I was proud to serve. I know that as far as my experiences, it was exciting at times, but other times it was real boring, and I was glad to get out. I would recommend it for somebody that hadn't made up their mind on what they wanted to do. It's can be dangerous, but there is a lot of learning to do too if you want to go to that route.
Was there anything you did for good luck?
Did I do what?
Did you do anything for good luck?
No, not really. I did collect a few things. When I parachuted from the airplane, we were told to free fall to keep from getting shot at, as far as and let the chute open at 1,500 feet or so. And when I pulled the so-called ripcord, it hesitated a little bit. We had a small chest parachute, so it was right in front of me. I pulled it, and there was just a little hesitation before it come out. And when it come out, it give you a sudden jerk. But when I got on the ground, I had that ripcord in my hand. I've still got it.
What did you do to entertain yourself?
We played a lot of cards. A couple of the bases had bowling alleys and theaters. When we got passes to go to town, we hit some of the bars, but even then we were too young legally. But we didn't go to a lot of shows.
Did you pull any pranks when you were in the service?
Well, yeah, some hot-footing and teasing different ones from different parts of the country. We had one man that was from deep Mississippi with a real after all. I mean, so he got a lot of teasing. Yeah. So it was a bickering back and forth. And
What were the camps and facilities like?
the ones in the United States were barracks, and when I originally went for basic training in Clearwater, we were in tents on the beach, Florida, and it got down to about 45 degrees at night, and we like to froze to death. But then we were transferred to some hotels in St. Petersburg, 9th floor, but we couldn't use the elevator. So it was up and down the stairs about 6 or 8 times a day, which was part of the training to get us into shape.
Was there any instructors that you remember?
We had an instructor from Brooklyn that we couldn't understand, and a close order drill. So it took us 3 or 4 days before we knew whether we were going to go left or right or back,
Is there any stories you'd want to share?
I can't think of any offhand.
Were you hurt at all when your plane went down?
I had some small flak punctures in my back and my bottom area. I landed in the last tree before a opening that I was trying to steer for, and my both ankles were chipped. Other than that, I wasn't injured.
Did you receive medical care for that?
No.
Okay.
No.
What was going through your mind when that happened?
Well, I had no idea what kind of situation we were landing in. The people that picked us up, most of them couldn't speak English. We didn't know about D-Day for a couple of weeks after we were down. We were with family groups in the hills in southern Yugoslavia, Bosnia now, where they've had the problems the last several years. Fortunately, we were there during the summer when they were had a lot of vegetables, but they didn't have any meat. The Germans had confiscated all the domestic animals, and so we went from one place to another for over 2 months. Other than that, I didn't gain any weight, that's for sure.
What other events were occurring during the war?
Like I say, we were shot down on D-Day, and when we got out of there, I think just a few days, they had the invasion of southern France. While we were doing the missions, the Allies were in southern Italy, Anzio beachhead, trying to move north, but they were pretty well stalled at Anzio.
What were your duties?
When we were flying, I operated the ball turret underneath the B-24. It's a turret that had to be hoisted up into the plane when they took off for the landing. So you had to lower it down, and when you got in, you could see very little of the plane. So you were underneath, you could looking down, and you could go it around 360 degrees around and up and down. So just taking care of the turrets and the guns.
Any memorable experiences?
Well, other than our adventures in Yugoslavia, but we did have one deal in gunnery school down in Las Vegas. One of the guys in my barracks, we were flying in two-seated airplanes, pilot and a gunner in the back seat. We had a handheld gun, machine gun, that we fired at a trailing target from another plane. As he was standing up firing, the plane hit an air pocket, and he popped up and broke his seatbelt, and he slid down the back of the plane over the tail. Well, the pilot didn't see him right away, but he did eventually see him and motioned to him that to hang on. So they flew back over the base, and the pilot motioned for him to get off of there. Well, the guy shook his head no. The pilot turned the plane over, and he dropped off. Of course, he had a parachute on and parachuted. Well, that's just one of the...
Okay. What kept you going, like every day?
Well, I think the idea that we were doing our duty and doing things that bringing the war to an end, and the idea that we were helping anyway.
Describe a typical day in the service.
Describe mine?
A typical day in the service.
Well, there's a lot of typical days. In our combat missions, we'd get up, say, 4 o'clock in the morning, go for a briefing on where we were going to fly and what the possibilities of fighter or anti-aircraft was. And we'd take off a little after daybreak, and it takes an hour for all the planes to get in the right formation, fly our mission, and then come back. And after landing, you had to go through a debriefing, telling an interviewer what happened during the mission. Of course, that's a day in the combat. Other than that, we had, after I come back from overseas, I served at a couple of bases in Colorado. Served as a instructor in a bomb school. Then I served in a office for supplies for an officer's school. Here's a couple of pictures that I'd like to show you.
Okay.
Now, this is a picture of part of my crew that I was on. This was taken after we come out of 2 months, 6 days behind the lines. And this is in front of a B-24 landing gear. Here you can see part of the tail. This is including all the ones that returned except for the pilot. I'm in the foreground. I didn't shave or didn't have my hair cut for the 2 months that we were behind the lines. This is a picture that was taken, I think that I was only 19 years old before I went overseas. In 1943. This is a Silver Star. It was given to the whole crew for that last mission that we were on. We shot down 5 out of 9 attacking planes coming out of Palestine oil fields. This is a Purple Heart for the wounds that I got. This is the Air Medal that was given to those that went on over 5 missions. And this is a Rifle Expert Medal for firing on a rifle range. I had a couple other medals that denote the battlefields of southern Europe and North Africa. Going into service, I had no stripes. After the first school, I was a PFC with just 1 stripe. I went through gunnery school. They give us a sergeant stripe with the 3 stripes. And when I went overseas, they gave me the staff sergeant stripes, which I held for the rest of the time I was in the service. Air Force patch, another Air Force insignia, and 2 stripes on the sleeve for service. And the jacket don't fit no more, and it's got all kinds of moth holes. It's been in the closet too long.